Hi, everyone. It's Thursday, June 1st, 2023. Welcome to TechTO Quick Takes. I'm your host, Alex Reilly, and here are today's headlines. Reilly Legal conjures up a name change and 10.9 million in funding. Hostaway raises 175 million US to pull away from the competition, and BenchSci raises 95 million in Series D to help break it all down. Alex Norman joins me. Hi, Alex.
Hey, how you doing, Alex?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm excited. We're starting to see a few larger rounds come together. The weather's improving. What's not to love about life right now?
Exactly. Everything is heating up in that sense. So just to jump into our first headline, we do have a special guest that's joining us to kind of help walk you through it and add some insight as well. So Alex, if you want to intro our guest for the episode.
Sure, we have Scott, one of the co-founders of Spellbook, which formerly was known as Reilly Legal. Hey,
Hi,
Scott.
Hey,
Scott.
folks. Hey, Alex and Alex.
Alex,
Yeah.
Alex, yeah.
How you doing?
Doing great, doing great.
You know,
Yeah.
Yeah. Where do we find you today?
Where do you find me? You find me in St. John's, Newfoundland. Yeah, I guess we're a couple weeks post our raise announcement, and yeah, just kind of rapidly scaling what we're doing here at Spellbook. So it's a pretty busy time, but it's good.
Cool. So for people that aren't aware of an announcement, what is the news that we're talking about today?
Yeah, so we just raised 10.9 million for formerly Reilly, now Spellbook. We are a legal automation company. We've been around for a little while, and we set out with a mission to help legal transactions move 10 times or 100 times faster because they underlie everything that we do in the world. And September of last year, we launched a generative AI copilot for lawyers. As far as we know, it was the first one commercially launched for lawyers. And it was called Spellbook. And it rapidly grew. And we've had much more demand than we could keep up with. And yeah, so we raised around earlier than we expected to kind of keep up with that growth, scale out our onboarding team. We have a wait list of almost 60,000 people now. Yeah, we're just trying to keep up with that demand, onboard more legal professionals, and yeah, build out the product further.
So let's break down some of this news and some of the stuff you said. You said it rapidly grew. So you talked about 60,000 people on the wait list, and you talked about these being legal professionals. So what was the big breakthrough, or how are you able to serve these customers that you've created, unlock so much demand?
Yeah, so long story. We've been working with this customer base for a long time. So it starts with, I think, really just intimately understanding your customer and their day-to-day problems. When we started this company, so I have two co-founders, Daniel and Matt, who are awesome. I came from the engineering background. Daniel came from the law background, and Matt came from a design background. I think Matt and I were both very naive when we started. We were like, oh, why are these law firms charging so much money? Like, maybe we can just automate all their work with software, and the world is going to be amazing. And after working with lawyers, actually we worked out of a law office in the early days alongside lawyers that were kind of actually doing the work. We realized very quickly that legal work is really hard. The work that lawyers and paralegals do is really tough. I think it's truly one of the toughest jobs in the world. I don't think it's anywhere near being fully automated. But there is a lot of drudgery that software can help with. So we started by doing more what's called document automation or template-based automation. Like, say you're doing like a financing transaction for a company. There's like 10 or so really important documents that would go along with that, along with all the other stuff in the minute book. So you can template all that and have these nice automated workflows to help you get you part of the way. And that works for a lot of things in law, but we would always hear from our customers and lawyers especially. They're like, oh, like templates and document automation is cool, but my work is like so bespoke, it wouldn't work for me. Like every clause I write is just perfect for my client, and like there's no way a template could ever do that. And at first we would kind of roll our eyes, and then we would hear that over and over and over again, and eventually you kind of actually digest it, and you're like, oh, like legal work actually is very bespoke. The work that lawyers do to like review a 100-page contract is actually really hard. I mean, imagine I give you a 100-page contract and I'm your client, And I'm like, Alex, I need this back by tomorrow because it's end of month, and we're trying to get this in under the wire. What are you going to do to like review and negotiate that contract? Are you going to sit down and like print off the contract and like read all 100 pages for bad language, like and aggressive language? It's a really, really hard and tough problem. So then the insight we had with large language models. The aha moment for us that we connected to that problem of, you're a lawyer reviewing a 100-page contract, trying to draft changes, was actually using GitHub Copilot. So GitHub Copilot was really, I think, the first generative AI application that really spread far and wide, and I think had incredible engagement and usage metrics. And I, as an engineer, used it. At first, I was super skeptical. I was like, oh, like there's no way this thing is going to work. It would output this code in advance of me typing it, and I'd be like, oh, that code looks like overly complex, like it doesn't make any sense. And then 10 minutes later, I'd be like, oh, like actually the AI anticipated a whole bunch of problems that I wasn't even thinking about 10 minutes in advance of me. And that was just like a mind-blowing moment for me as a programmer, seeing like AI actually in some ways program better than I can. So we very quickly kind of took that technology and said we kind of want to build like the GitHub Copilot for lawyers, and launched it September 1st of last year, very, very, very quickly. And as soon as we started rolling it out to beta users, they were using it constantly. And then we've just been on a. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so that sounds interesting. It sounds like you had a product there, you understood your customer well, and you launched a new product based on a technology breakthrough. So, and you talk about now, 60,000 are people on the wait list, or potential customers on a wait list. So it sounds like you had you have signs of product market fit. Other than just a wait list, what other signs, like how do the customer interactions change? And then what did that do to the company? Because you went, what does it feel like post product market fit?
It truly felt like the mythical product market fit moment that I didn't believe existed. People would say, oh, like when you have product market fit, people will pull the product out of your hands faster than you could provide it. And I'd be like, yeah, right. Like how many companies does that really happen to? It definitely happened to us, and it's a completely different feeling than anything we had encountered before. It truly is more demand than we can possibly service. Even now, as we're hiring, we're still not keeping up. It puts pressure on a lot of areas of the company, but it becomes a different game of really scaling and a lot of the. I think when people think about starting a company, they think about a lot of the like traditional small medium business stuff where you think about processes and like scaling and delegation. We never really thought it had to think about that stuff until product market fit. And like I don't think founders should think about that stuff until they find product market fit, because you're really just gonna trying to find your hit and just wandering around the jungle for a long time. But once you hit, all of a sudden, scaling and processes and figuring out how to service all those customers. Like how do you even, we have over 600 of customers using this a lot. Like how do we even digest all that feedback and make sure that it gets into our product team? It's a lot of really hard and different problems, but it's fun.
And so you have you have a bunch of customers signing up and wanting to use you. And I think the other thing, which sounds like it was a sign of product market fit, is I saw in the Semaphore article that you had your customers are using 280 spells, I guess spells like interactions with your software per month. So how quickly did you see that? Was it like the first customers were using us once a month, and the second month, or did it just immediately like, hey, they became dependent on you?
It's pretty immediate. There's pretty immediate uptake from our early customers, especially because our beta users were definitely like early adopter types of customers. So they adapted it pretty quickly. But I would say we've had like a quadrupling of like weekly usage per user since we launched. So we've added more features and functionality. So originally we just didn't have that many different we call them spells that help a lawyer. We didn't have that much at first, but now as we've added more things that you can use more often, we've definitely seen that, almost quadruple, like daily usage kind of quadruple. Big thing that I think is made that usage increase is we created this new feature called suggestions, where just you load up any contract in Microsoft Word, and it's just going to Spellbook is just going to come up with all of these different suggestions and calling out, aggressive terms, things you should watch out for. So when our customer opens any contract, they're like, well, I should check the Spellbook suggestions. Like, why not? They're there already. Yeah.
It's like their trusty associate that's put the contract there with some comments for them. Hey, I'm not sure this is what you need to look at, but these seem odd to me.
Yeah.
And let's talk a bit about, I'd love to hear a bit about how you put the round together. 3 other questions, before you look at the round, and like how it came together, and like what you were looking for, because I think you have some unique investors in your round. 2 is what you're hiring for, and 3, just your overview on what should we believe and not believe in generative AI. So let's talk about the round first. Cool. You announced the round, it's 10.9 million. There's several investors. Like, how do you choose which ones to have, and what's the advantage of like having Thomson Reuters in there?
So the round, this round came together pretty well considering the environment, and it was because our metrics were really good, and investors could see, even just based on like public metrics of like website traffic, that we were getting a lot of traffic. Compared to previous raises I've been involved with, it went pretty smooth. We had just a lot of investors reaching out to us. We didn't have to do any real outbound, and we had connections, through our existing investors, and our usage metrics and just like the inflection point was so clear. I think that we were able to pull off a raise pretty easily, even in a downturn. I think like true product market fit is something that when investors see it, they're still pretty interested, no matter what the macro environment is, because it's still so rare. So I think those metrics helped a lot. In terms of who the investors are, so Moxie Ventures led the round. They're great. We talked to them pretty early on. They're I would say pretty technical, so they were able to dive into our metrics faster than a lot of other investors and see the early signs and patterns maybe a little faster than some other funds. So they were just very fast moving, which we really appreciated, because we had to raise the money to grow our team. And Thomson Reuters investing is definitely an important part of the round, and something that we're really excited about. I can't talk too much about kind of specifics now, but I can talk about just kind of the obvious questions every lawyer is asking about this technology is like why can I trust the text that comes out of it? Like, where does it come from? Does it come from the internet? Does it come from some mysterious training set? And so I would say folks who have data providers who have these kind of trusted legal data sets, like TR, definitely are really important players right now in the ecosystem, because they have the data sets that lawyers actually trust. And I think that for all generative AI applications, it's pretty important component. Is like, like, where is the data coming from, and why can you trust it?
Yeah, and I also think there's copyright issues too for lots of data as well. So
there is.
So A, is it hallucinating? B, can I, even if it's not hallucinating, am I getting in trouble by using this? At least for big enterprises, those are questions. And so you put it around together. I think there's a few other investors, like the legal fund. Full disclosure, my fund was in there. You had Inovia. So really, like, seems like
Inovia. That's awesome.
Leading one of the leading funds in Canada. So it sounds like just use of proceeds, because it sounds like you started growing so fast, you just needed all hands on deck, and you can't. But so, like, is it basically, hey, we know what we have to hire for and just scale up? And if so, what are the positions? What's the best way to find the positions and join you guys? Or apply to join you guys.
Yeah, we're definitely recruiting. You go to spellbook.legal and click the careers tab, and you can see some of the roles we have up, and there's more coming. We're really hiring for pretty much every department in the company, because we've been pretty lean so far. So we have gaps to fill everywhere. Definitely, like, one of our first gaps is account executives and our sales team to onboard all of those people on our wait list. So that's one position we've been recruiting for very quickly. We're bolstering our engineering team, hiring AI expertise. We are hiring marketing. We're probably bringing on a finance lead as well. And probably an operations lead too. So pretty much all across the board.
Yeah. So no shortage of opportunities. And then,
and we're also, for your audience, we're kind of dual headquartered, I guess, between Toronto and St. John's, Newfoundland. So yeah, we have space in Toronto and are definitely hiring in Toronto.
And question now, a couple of questions about your positioning in the market. One thing is, anything I read about you, it's about legal practitioners. And I think one of the big beliefs of generative AI is like, hey, this should be open to anyone. So like, why have you limited your customers to just legal practitioners?
Yeah, a whole bunch of reasons. One, there's just like a legal and regulatory reason. There's something called UPL, or unauthorized practice of law. We don't want to partake in or be liable for. So like, just it's from a regulatory standpoint, it's fuzzy whether we even could sell it to non-lawyers. But I would think also just from an ethical perspective, and just in the DNA of our company has very much become about really being like an electric bicycle for lawyers. We want them to do what we really believe as a company in the value of lawyers and their work, and we want to help them do what they do faster. And so we're designed, our whole product is designed around what we call assistive AI, which is very much like GitHub Copilot. It's to help someone, a professional, do what they do better and faster, but it doesn't take them out of the driver's seat. You can't like delegate full tasks to it. You're not actually changing your habits that much, and that's really important to like our whole thesis as a company. Like, we're not like a separate tab you go to in your browser. We come to Microsoft Word. So everything we do as a company is around kind of just being, again, like this electric bike for lawyers that helps them do the work faster. So it's just not really an appropriate tool, I would say, at this point for non-legal professionals. And like ethically, I don't think there was this big piece in the New York Times you might have seen on Twitter the weekend of a lawyer using this technology and not checking the results and ending up in some hot water. So I think like there's a definite risk if you take that lawyer out of the loop. There's a risk of things being seen, but we've really designed our product to make it so that the lawyer's reviewing everything that it spits out, that they're still in the driver's seat, their hands are on the wheel. It's not full self-driving. It's like partial it's not full automated driving. It's only partial.
Yeah. And then last question before I let you go, just overall generative AI, like I would love to hear, like, what are the things that the general public or startups don't understand about generative AI? Like, if like almost like, what are the least understood, like what's the missing aha thing, or what's the biggest myth? Because you've been an early adopter, and this, I think, this is an extremely hot area, just generally.
There's a whole bunch of them. I really like thinking about things in terms of like, like where's the alpha, how is this hype cycle evolving, and is it valuable to adopt this technology now or not? And it's very much like investing or trading. You're always like, how do you stay ahead of the market? How do you think ahead of the market? I think the market is still I think a lot of people are still underestimating the importance of the technology. If that, I think there's always this backlash. You always have this kind of wave of hype, and then immediately after that wave of hype, you have like, oh well, I can't do everything, and like a lawyer used it irresponsibly. I think from what we see, the metrics and the usage metrics are just super surprising compared to anything I've seen before. We're looking at the hard data, and it's like, this technology is real. It's not just hype. This is really helping our customers in brand new ways that we never could have done for them before. And it just shows in the hard data. So I think the most important thing for people to know is, like, companies like ours, the reason we're raising money is not like, oh, there's all this AI hype. It's like, you look at the metrics and you're like, wow, like I've been working on products my whole life, or I mean, a lot of my adult life, and I've never seen these kinds of metrics before, in terms of just usage and engagement. So I think the main thing is like it's real. I think the other thing, people talk a lot about defensibility. And it's like, oh, if I adopt this, will it be defensible? I think if any team is thinking about things, I think that's the wrong framing to think about things. It's like, being like a SaaS company in like, I don't know, 2010 or something, being like, oh, like, should we use like a SQL database? Like, is that really defensible? Like, I don't know if we should use a SQL database because, it may not be defensible. Like other people are going to use databases too. I just think this technology is going to be so ubiquitous in every application. It's a new fundamental piece of how software is built, just like relational databases, where you shouldn't be thinking like, oh, is it defensible or not? You should be thinking like, oh, this is just a new component of software that all software is going to have. And if you adopt it faster than your competitors, you'll be in a good spot. But I do think you have to adopt it thoughtfully. I think it's hard to just kind of shove it in to the corner of your app and now you're an AI company. It does require you to really rethink, your user experiences entirely, and that can be pretty challenging.
I've seen a few pitch decks where it's, "Hey, we're AI." I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Because they entrepreneurs just see the money going to that sector, and they think, oh, that's the magic to unlock the money. But
it's not that. Every investor we talk to is like, they're digging deep into all the metrics. It's not because they see AI. Yeah.
Scott, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to make sure we have a link to the job postings at the job section of your site. I'm looking forward to, like, in 24 months when we talk about how you managed to execute against that wait list, because it's a massive wait list. Thanks so much for your time, Scott.
Thanks for having me.
Scott, I really like the example about kind of the self-driving car versus it's just assisted. I think it's a really good way to break down kind of exactly what they're doing. And also, a few months ago, I believe, Alex, we did quite an in-depth profile on Spellbook and also on Scott as well. So just before we transition into the next headline, I will link the web version of that if anyone wants just further insight onto the inspiration and story.
Want to also touch on a couple of takeaways for the community, because I do think there's a couple of things that Scott said are very important. Just like as we look at the news, like, look, generative AI is getting a ton of hype.
Absolutely.
But beyond the hype, it looks like this has created a technology inflection point, enabling startups like Scott to do stuff, solve problems for solve customers' problems in a way they couldn't do before. So what's interesting about this, I think we're going to see this hype cycle play out faster than previous generations of hype, especially in the internet, because you've got the internet so widely distributed, technology is covered so quickly by media. And I see this across the technology space. Traditional enterprises are looking for AI solutions quicker than ever before. So the companies that can truly provide solutions will get customers and grow extremely rapidly. Look, 6,000 potential customers on waitlist is not normal. That's even product market fit. That's really fast. The ones that can't solve the problem will die. So I think, how do you win in spaces? You do what Spellbook has done. You really understand your customer. They were trying to solve the problems for legal practitioners for a while. Build a solution that can leverage generative AI or whatever technology you need to build the best-in-class solution to solve the problem in the best-in-class way, and design the solution around the workflow of your customer. And so, like, I think companies like Spellbook will see more and more of these emerge, and you'll have early winners. Now, it doesn't mean all the winners in the space will come out in the next 24 months. Mobile phone took a decade to play out, which was a big change too. So I'm excited to see Canadian winners emerge. I'm excited to see what we will see from our community over the next few years.
Absolutely. That was a great way to sort of sum it up. And I think it was also important that you highlighted that, a lot of founders are like, there's so much hype in this space, maybe this is what I need to get in on, but there is a lot more involved in, obviously, product market fit and kind of creating the balance between finding success within the space and not just, well, everybody seems to be interested, so maybe I should get in on this now. And just to circle back what I was saying before, so we'll have a ton of info on this in the show notes, and we will link to the newsletter profile that we did on Spellbook and Scott as well. But for those that don't already subscribe to the newsletter, we have great profiles like this on these companies and stories and anything like that. So you You can subscribe at techtio.org/newsletter. We're often doing profiles and stories such as this, just highlighting success stories, inspiration to filling gaps in industries, things like that. Anything really standing out to you right now, Alex, in the newsletter?
I think we're trying to break down a lot of the news that's happening and provide analysis. And I think there's some interesting things we've written. We have profiles of the speakers coming up for our next event,
Yep.
in June. So I think it's always good to see who you can potentially meet in real life. And so I like the fact that they're closely tied together.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of comparisons that people can make to their own stories, obviously, to these success stories from these founders we've profiled, which I think it's great to humanize it as well. So they're also great at providing those types of stories. So next headline, Hostaway raises 175 million US to pull away from the competition. So aside from this large number that this raise is, what else is really notable to you about this round?
Look, let's just start with that number. It's one of the largest we've seen in Canada this year.
Yeah.
What's not clear is what's the valuation or how much the company they've sold. So it's a nice number, but what's more impressive about this round is how capital efficient the company has been to date. It looks like previous to this announcement, the company only raised about $300 million since its founding in 2015. And despite that, they scaled to quite a large company in a very competitive space. They have over 100,000 properties in 100 countries, and they've 100x revenue since 2021. Really capital efficient company.
And how did they specifically, but also like how does a company find themselves in this position? How do they get here? Because as you said, yeah, it's one of the larger ones we've seen in Canada this year.
I think what you're going to see more and more of these later rounds, just like what we just got talked about, the winning companies and the companies that are going to merge and get the attention are the ones that really understand their customer problems. In this case, the founders, they started this platform to help vacation rentals, and they realized that some of their competitors came from that industry, had vacation rentals, and they didn't. So instead of going and just coding and trying to figure out what to code, they started a side hustle of actually owning or running a couple of rental properties themselves. The second thing, which forced them to be capital efficient, is they were raising in 2015. Airbnb was growing, but wasn't massive. It wasn't clear this was a huge market. So it provided a bit of headwinds in raising. And the three founders are all finished. They were raising in North America. And what's interesting, the only capital seemed like our majority of capital they got seemed to be from the community that knew them in Finland. So what happens when you don't have money? You're forced to be careful where you spend it. And so they slowly built a product which resonated, and they built a product that I guess helps vacation rentals list across multiple channels. They've and take care of any other functionality that they require, and whatever they couldn't build, they had no problem integrating with over 100 other apps. So by being careful what they had to do, they realized what they had to build themselves, what was valuable, and they also realized what was built and they could integrate from others. So they didn't try to reinvent the wheel where it was already existed.
Right. And we have definitely seen the recovery of the travel industry as a whole. So, I mean, maybe aside from that, I know a lot of folks are kind of unsure of the right timing around raising. So for them, why raise now? Especially the market has been difficult and constantly changing.
Look, there's two things that go into every raise. One is hypothetical, one is, do I know how to use this capital? And can I add value? Like at the beginning, it's like the capital is used to find product market fit. And after that, it's like, do I know how to go to market and put a dollar in, generates $3 in revenue? And the second one is, can I raise the money? And three is on terms I like. And so I think when you read between the lines here, this company knows what to do from a product, from a go to marketplace. They also view that it's a potential time to roll up and acquire some of the competitors. So they've shown they know how to spend money. They've shown they obviously have a vision where to invest the money. And someone was willing to invest in terms that made sense for him. So I think it was, hey, we can grow faster with capital, and capital's available. And, maybe, while the travel market's hot, this is a very competitive space. And maybe this is a time to go buy up and roll up the industry. But in having cash on a balance sheet allows you to do that.
Yeah. And just last question for you around this. So you did have some nice takeaways there just from the race perspective and raising now, but do you have any final takeaways as a whole from this news for our community?
So I think lots of companies are being forced to be capital efficient because it's hard to raise money.
Mm-hmm.
And, sort of over the last few years, people haven't really worried about capital efficiency. It's sort of been underrated. But, because every founder thinks the easiest way to build a successful company is let's raise a ton of money and then we'll have the resources we need.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, that's true, but I'd argue is many companies in the startup ecosystem dive into ingestion and starvation. What I mean is they have too much money, they're not forced to focus, they just piss it away, for lack of a better word, and then they can't raise because they have a high valuation. So, what does limited cash force you? It forces you to better allocate resources, make sure focus more on your customers that you're getting an ROI for them, build strong habits that when you do raise, you're careful with you spend it. Flip side, it does take longer to build a company and to start scaling and may make you more risk averse, which may prevent you from learning enough. It feels like Hostaway looks like they're better positioned than it appears because they didn't raise venture capital on and they built a good platform to grow off of. And the story is also a reminder that the path to success is never a straight line. If you read their story, COVID forced the company to make reductions, in staff as revenue plummeted due to COVID. And I gotta say, we talked about community before. This is a great story. Marcus, CEO, has been an active participant in our community. He presented in 2019. I encourage everyone to just check out the video, and you can learn about his journey. And it's one where he gets, talks about how he's been inspired by the tech community, he's learned from it, and how he wants to give back. And I love to see that in our ecosystem.
Yeah, and I will, for those that aren't familiar with the conversation from 2019, I'll link that in the show notes as well, and make sure it's included in the newsletter tomorrow. So thanks, Alex. The last headline I want to discuss with you today is so BenchSci's $95 million Series D round. Again, another fairly large raise that we're talking about again. So just start by breaking down the news here and also just what's different about this company and about this round. It's another large one, but just what's different.
So first of all, yes, it's an AI-based company. It's in a large market. It's not generative AI. This is like old school artificial intelligence, as old, not old 1960s. This is like what started the AI first AI wave in the 2010s. And this is due to traction the company has versus the potential has. So this is not like a Cohere or an OpenAI. This is someone that's applying it and has revenue. And also, in particular, we know Leon really well. He's presented about how to raise money to our community. We should link to that because he basically says all the advice he got was wrong, and he has a very unique approach to raising money, which it sounds like it's paid off in this kind of case. And also, Leon has more information to share. We did have him at the Best of TechTO this year.
We did. Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll link to those videos.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will include those. And how do they get traction like this? How, what it sort of puts them in this position?
I'll break it down to two things. First, I'll talk about the traction they have. So look, we're talking about tens of thousands of researchers subscribing to BenchSci, and 16 of the largest 20 pharmaceutical companies use it to research new drugs. They claim revenue has accelerated since the pandemic and has doubled over the past 18 months and is in position to double again shortly. So why? So I don't know how familiar with the pharmaceutical industry. They produce all these great life-saving drugs and these, but over the years, it's been gotten more and more expensive and takes more and more time to bring a drug to market. You're talking about billions of dollars, 2 to 7 years, vaccines from COVID set aside, but so research, very expensive time-wise, very expensive cost, money-wise.
Yeah.
And on top of that, there's many false starts, right? You say, okay, here's a potential, molecule that could solve X, Y, and Z. They do a couple of year study and it doesn't work. So BenchSci uses AI to basically cut both the risk of a false start down, the time it takes to do the research. So it saves significant time for customers. So what does it do? I mean, particularly what it does is it reviews thousands of scientific publications to identify which antibodies and reagents are likely to be successful for new medications. And they also give you context of what's already been being already tried or experimented on. So like one of our customers in their annual report in 2021, Novartis, stated that using BenchSci saved them $14 million between 2018 and 2021. So you can see very high return investment. I don't know what they charge, but like over 3 years, it's $14 million. So you're saying, hey, this is one software that's saving us $5 million per year. That's however they measure it.
And from what you do know about this round, is there anything else that's been particularly interesting or that you do know that's worth sharing?
Like there was a couple quotes in the Global Mail article that announced this round. It seems like this had clean terms. So that means like, so lots of new rounds out there say, hey, if before, they put all these extra terms on a round saying we need to see 4 times our money before any other investor, the founders see money, or if X, Y, and Z, like this, put, we get warrants, we get options, whatever, right? Like there's all sorts of terms you can put out there. So first of all, it's clean, which means, hey, it was basically we're gonna put money in, nothing very onerous on there. Second of all, we know it's at least a flat round or maybe an up round, and multiple firms are willing to lead. So there's lots of firms willing to lead, pretty clean round. So that means there's something that's going well. This continues trend we've been seeing in the market where the best companies with cash on the table already, and that's the thing BenchSci said they had cash they didn't need to raise, are getting preempted. So that means VCs are proactively starting talks to invest them. And while anyone that actually has to go to market and needs money, it seems to be still difficult. So it's an interesting thing that's going on in the market.
And I mean, we know this is obviously a product of the Toronto ecosystem, BenchSci in particular, but is there anything else that's really interesting that you want to highlight or backstory about the company?
So won't go too much into it now, but like the BenchSci, it started was going through Creative Destruction Labs, and Liron, who became a co-founder and a CEO, was participating as an MBA student in Toronto CDL and ended up joining the team. So this team would not exist in this combination of co-founders if it wasn't for the Creative Destruction Labs.
I love that. And that's a good highlight. So just lastly, any further takeaways you have for our community?
Well, maybe I've harped on all 3 sections.
That's okay.
Yeah, I think one fundamental change in the market is, go back 2 years ago, you get lots of large rounds, and there'd be questions about what traction, but more importantly, what ROI are these companies providing for customers? And I care to speculate in lots of cases, or a few cases, they weren't, and it wasn't, growth for growth's sake was good enough, and there's many ways to purchase growth. But what you're seeing now is the companies that are raising money have demonstrable ROI for their customers, and it's extremely important right now for 2 reasons. One is, I believe what I'm seeing across lots of startups, customers are being a bit more hesitant with their money. So this has to be, you have to clearly demonstrate an ROI before you're going to invest it. And VCs that are looking at later stage rounds are spending more time doing diligence on the numbers behind the numbers. So if you can't demonstrate that your customers love your product, it's going to be hard to raise no matter what your revenues on top of that are. So and the best way to do that is really understand your problem. Provide the customers the solution that creates value and it works in a way that they want to. Sounds easy, but very hard to execute against. The other thing I would say here is the funding markets have improved. Like this week, we're talking about 3 large rounds, and there are a few others that are in similar size that we didn't discuss. But in most cases, these large rounds are going to what looks like clear winners with capital ready, which is interesting because it's creating a significant gap or gulf between companies in the 90th percentile and everyone else. And capital is becoming a tool or competitive advantage or moat again. And so this might be discouraging to many founders that are thinking of starting a company, but I think the reverse is true. It's an excellent time to start a company, because if you can start showing some traction, you start showing your customer, and you can start pulling away back from the pack, you can get capital where your competitors can, and it can be part of a compounding wheel to start really dominating a space much easier than you could a few years ago. And in addition, some of the costs of running your business have are some of the availability. Like it's easier to rent a place now. It's easier to get employees. I'm also hearing across the board that marketing, costs are falling a bit. So despite it being difficult to raise money, I think just the fact that it's harder to raise money than it was 2 years ago is actually makes it easier to build a real business, a breakout business.
It's an interesting takeaway too, because I think just the overall raising process might be a deterrent, but you're focusing things on the other benefits, even though, I mean, despite dealing with that as well. So I think that's a great place to end. Before we go, I know that we have a very full events calendar for the year at TechTO, but there's just 4 in particular that I want to highlight. So you can obviously find out everything about our events on our website, so at techto.org. And we have one coming up on Monday, June 5th at 1:11. Great lineup, again, of speakers. I'll let you just touch on that in a second if you want to. Our big event, the Summer Social, June 26th at the Slip. We're really taking advantage of the good weather. So outside, networking, good food, drinks, and by the water, which is always amazing. July 10th, we have a Tech Together. And then we're also back in Montreal on July 13th. Is there anything you'd like to call out about those events?
I'm not, look, the events, we have a great lineup on Monday. It's going to be hopefully great weather in the end of June. I think we're also going to be in Montreal around Startup Fest. So, I think there's going to be a lot of time to get out, to take advantage of great Canadian summers. I think what I just want to ask is, if you're enjoying our podcast or listening to our stuff, share it to a friend, or, we've been, can you just leave us a review and telling us what you love about it? Because we keep getting constant great word of mouth, but we like to share this with the wider community. And we've been told the best way to do that is by getting a few more reviews of our podcast. Yeah. So if you love it, 5 stars, tell us people why you love it. If you don't love it, email me and tell me what we can do to improve it.
Exactly. We're open to feedback either way. So I appreciate that. Alex, thanks as always for helping us break down the news of the last couple of weeks. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. And we will be back in 2 weeks' time with another episode of Quick Take.
We're in the business of delivering impossible things. We're in the business of delivering things that nobody's ever seen before.
If you build that culture, you'll come up with really cool and innovative stuff, and literally could be in the next multi-billion-dollar idea. So this conversation is largely going to be about scaling yourself and scaling your leadership team.
I want to talk about one of the biggest struggles that I think a lot of startups face early on, which is building initial traction.